I'm glad to have you here. And it's fun for me because there is always this interesting debate, and with our customers, and customers ask all the time, hey, we're going to get ISO certified, 27001 certified, or we're going to get SOC 2 attested or CMMC. Do we need a tool, right? Generally speaking, these tools are often referred to as like a governance, risk, and compliance tool. So I'm going to ask you an interesting question. So, there are a lot of GRC tools in the marketplace. Yeah. So what made you a couple of years ago look at a marketplace that was already reasonably crowded and say, hey, I think I should start a GRC. I think I should bring a new tool to the market.
That's funny. Yeah, well, when I was looking at it, I was kind of picking on looking back to my experience doing it a couple of times. I did it once during my job at Microsoft. I had to do some compliance for the Windows Live ID product. And then I had a previous startup where I was also doing it as well. What I realized is it just wasn't a great application or tool for me. You're right, John, there are some tools, but they're a little bit antiquated, bigger, more expensive. Certainly nothing that's, cloud, multi-tenant with a really modern experience. And because of that, we didn't use a tool when I did it before. And I'm like, why wasn't it? So I was using email, I was using spreadsheets, I was putting files in Dropbox. And I thought, there's really room here for a tool.
Yeah. And that is, I think, a really, I think that's a good fundamental thing for us to kind of underpin the conversation on, right? Is where is it where there's a value proposition associated with the tool, right? So again, you went back and you looked at this and you said, hey, I got ISO certified without a tool, and you decided to come out with a tool. So what is it that you think people, what are the challenges that you're addressing, that you thought were important to address for people that are listening, like that might be thinking the same thing, hey, about to get ISO certified, should I invest in a tool or not?
Well, from an environment perspective, what we saw happening was compliance was kind of following the same path that security did, where it started out as a domain of a few people that would kind of, take a look at your security posture, generate a report, maybe they'd hire some white hat hackers, send it over to the board, and you're good for a year. That's the way compliance is still being treated largely, but we see it moving more towards like security where, it's continuous. People need to be trained on it. Everybody's a steward of it. And the process is democratized. So you got to get enough people involved because they're the people that have the evidence. So when you look at it in that lens, you're looking at it as a business process more than anything else that requires collaboration, automation, and a functional modern system of record. That didn't exist. When we talk about those other products, they were really kind of like for specialists.
So in a weird way, and for those listening, I know of Hyperproof. We've looked at it a little bit. We're interested in the product ourselves and seeing how we might be able to use it or be able to explain to our clients how we might be able to use it. And you guys recently got, I believe it was SOC 2 attestation. That was one of the things that was a concern of ours. We wanted to make sure that you had that prior to having those more deeper conversations. So I'm actually exploring the conversation a little bit myself here today. So that's what you said is that kind of interesting. It sounds as if you're taking, like most of the early governance, risk, and compliance products, and we work with quite a few of them at points, they tended to be more about building the program from a forward-facing perspective. Now, it sounds to me the way you're addressing this is from a compliance perspective, which is sort of the working backwards in the process. And in a weird way, it makes a lot of sense to me because, when we would always build, back in the old days, I used to do database development, and we used to, was a programmer at one point. And, to me, you always begin with the end in mind. Like, if somebody said, what should the database look like? I would say, well, tell me the report I'm going to have to generate. Right? So start at the end and then work backwards to the beginning. In a weird way, is that what you guys are doing with this kind of taking that compliance-oriented approach?
I think it's an amazing observation. It's 100% true. So basically, and I'll put some words around it for you. What's been going on and really is the kind of standard right now in the industry is what we call inside the company occasional compliance. And what I mean by that is you get compliant when you need to for an audit, you pass the audit, and then you probably don't look at it again for another 6 or 8 months until you have to do the audit again. That's that forward-looking process that you're talking about. But now, if you go and you look at the people who are, let's say, working in security or in operations and IT or in the business, and you look at it from their perspective, well, there's lots of different groups doing audits. I'm getting hit up for a lot of evidence. I'm getting hit up for all the same stuff over and over and over again. How does a piece of software make my life simpler? And the way it does it, the way Hyperproof does it, is it gives you agency to take it back and say, look, I'm going to create a program here that stands outside the audit that I can maintain all throughout the course of the year. when people come and ask me questions, I'll just answer them with the evidence I already have. So it avoids all the audit fatigue and that concept of like, are you really asking me again? I just gave this 6 weeks ago. And if you throw some automation in the mix, it's even better, because not only can I answer real time, I can even automate the answer to that question. And so in a nutshell, we took it from the perspective of CISOs, people who work in that organization, rather than the auditor or the internal audit department or even the external auditor.